Two dudes, no path, rocking with You Are the Happiness That You Seek. We're back. This is week 3, my friends. The book by Rupert Spira is Jason Olivia here with Tyler Apollotti. And we are going to get into chapter 6 and 7 today. 2 chapters. We've realized that our goal of 3 chapters is just unreasonable with how much we talk. So we're knocking out 2 chapters a week within an hour or so. So thanks again for joining us, everybody. Jason, you want to do this shit?
Let's get it on, my brother.
Let's fuck this book. Nobody's interpreted this shit like we have. All right. So
a true gangster.
Called The Ultimate Prayer.
Yes.
Yeah, don't get me started on that. We are both kind of gangster. We have like our gangster histories a little bit, right? Right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, cool. Good.
We can just make it up even if we want to.
All right, so chapter 6 is called The Ultimate Prayer. And if you don't mind, I just wanted to start by reading the quote and kind of what it reflects within me. Is that okay?
You have my permission.
Thanks, Dad. Accept, Lord, this is my emptiness. Or I already fucked it up. I feel like I do that all the time. I get all hyped up for a quote and I fuck it up. Let me try again. Accept, Lord, this my emptiness, and so fill me with thyself, by Francis Nuttall. The reason why I really like this quote is because my entire life, from like 5 years old maybe, I feel like I've had a recurring vision of the void, and the void has always scared the shit out of me. And at least, through certain experiences, I've noticed that scare me even as a child and into adulthood with plant medicines and so on. But what I've been recalibrating in that story is what we perceive this void or emptiness to be is actually filled, because everything is filled with thyself and or source, God, and so on. So in this quote, it captures that reframing for me really well, which is why I really like
it. Touché.
Muy bien. So is there anything here at the beginning of the chapter that stood out to you that you'd like to break down?
Well, there's 2 main themes on this first page. I thought that was cool. Immediately into the second paragraph, this kind of is just an iterative comment, just as the screen is never really veiled by a movie, but only seems to be obscured due to the absorption of our attention in the drama. So our being is never really eclipsed by experience, but only seems to be concealed due to the exclusive focus of our attention on the content of experience. Basically, my understanding in reading that is simply our attention and where it goes does one of 2 things when it's microscopic or funneled attention. We typically are only seeing what the illusion of our eyes and our 5 senses are indicating to us, right? So I am this body, I'm Jason, I'm my personality, this is a chair I'm sitting on, etc. Whereas by relaxing, one can really realize that all of these things that we are seeing, feeling, smelling, tasting, touching comes from the same source, i.e. the screen. And at times it's still a tough pill to consider on the surface when I don't really plunge into it and really investigate it. It's so seductive to believe that the content of the movie or the movie that's playing on the screen is what is. And I was watching a movie last night, and I was trying to play with the idea that the screen is there the whole time. And quite frankly, it's not an easy task sometimes.
Dude, and well, the reason why I got up all in my head there for a second, I was like, imagine you're watching porn. Life here, this is porn. This is all porn right here. I'm distracted by the dopamine rush that I'm being hit with all the time because of how dramatic all this shit is, right? It's like when you go into porn, when you go watch porn, not that I do anybody, I don't watch porn ever. There's no way you're paying attention to your phone itself when you're seeing the porn on it, right? Like, or whatever, you're sucked into that experience. And that is exactly what's happening with life. We're sucked into that experience, the screen. And if you can really connect with that metaphor, my God, leaps and bounds in awareness, leaps and bounds. So thanks for inviting that, Jay.
Yeah.
Stop watching porn, kids.
Well, the fun exercise is to actually watch a movie and see if you can recall or focus on the screen itself along with the movie at the same time. Or another trick that I would do is I would actually turn off the movie. I've done this once or twice. Turn off the movie to see the screen, to remember that it is the screen. Turn the TV back, turn it on, and see it come on. So, you can have a little fun with that if you so choose.
I do like that. That's pretty cool. So I start a particular paragraph on this page as well. And it's relative to the kind of what I'm seeing as like the identification to the content of experience, where people get confused and emotional with the fact that a part of their content of experience, for example, a feeling or a thought, let's say like I am mad. When you say I am mad, in some way there's an attachment to, thanks for muting yourself, you're so aware, identifying to, you are becoming identified with that content of experience, and that is proclaiming your stuckness in that story, in that content. So when you can detach both verbally, when you share that this is something I am experiencing out and it is arising within my awareness, there's kind of a detachment from that. And I appreciated how he brought that up, because we talk about that a lot in Journeys of Wisdom, the work that we do, how using that language and changing that within one's mind can separate us from those sufferings or detachment or experience.
Yeah, I mean, touche. It does definitely. I had similar ideas, and how important language is. So like when we're coaching a client, or I'm coaching myself, or experiencing myself, language is really reflective of what's going on potentially in the inner world. You're all frozen. Oh, there you go. Okay. So it reflects one's inner world, right? So if one were to say, I am angry versus I am experiencing anger, it might be a cue for ourselves and for when we're coaching a client to consider or explore the idea of the identification with something rather than the observation of something.
Exactly. I love that distinction there.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you add in and understand experiencing, it is the awareness that there is something there, right? You are observing it. You're the witness to that, right, rather than it being a part of you. And that's so much, we don't have to transition as quickly, but that's what he gets into in the next section called the divine name on page 44. We don't have to jump ahead. If there's more on that previous page, then feel free, but there's a segue there, what we're talking about.
No, he just talks, he talks quite a bit about the importance of that. And just to restate it is, definitely reminded me of the Journeys of Wisdom language around, whether you use a part of me or not, the language that we use that typically we're unconscious of, right? I mean, we're using language all the time that seems like we're on autopilot with how we try to communicate and articulate ourselves and our experience. And it's just definitely worth exploring, in my opinion. Have you noticed for yourself? Have you noticed for yourself, outside of the Journeys of Wisdom, how our most recent conversations around this book, have you considered your language in light of that also?
In regards to this book, I mean, I feel like it was mostly solidified before the book. In regards to the book, I guess the language around, and that this totally ties into the next section, what is essential to my nature, and understanding more about what I'm experiencing as non-essential to my nature has allowed me to come to the source of my nature maybe a little quicker or smoother. And in this next section that's called the Divine Name, he says to play with, and I'm sure you've done this, saying, I am the couch. Are you the couch? Is the couch essential to your nature? No. We might have brushed across this a little bit. Am I my thoughts? No. Okay, you're not your thoughts. Are your thoughts essential to your nature? No. What are you? What are you? What are you? And you just eliminate all of these things that are not essential to your nature, and you come back to the divine name, which is I am. And I feel like that's what most of his work really is. It's not just saying I am, but understanding that you are the I am over and over again is very much what we're trying to do here. Anything in regards to what I just said?
Yes. It feels so clear after having spent so much time meditating, journaling, having my experiences with this, that it's really pretty cool. It's really cool to separate or come through the fog, so to speak, of the mental games that that I play. And when it comes right down to it,
for sure.
Who am I? And it just cuts through all the mental chatter, so to speak, and even sensations in the body, asking myself these questions really becomes almost like a surgical process, and not feeling like it's not too scientific or left brain activity, but it's really just piercing through the noise and feeling quite grounded when I do that.
Yeah. Do you think there's benefit to saying I am not something?
Yeah, I definitely think that there is definitely benefit in saying I am not something, ultimately, because it's our way, I think, and feel, for me, in my experience, it's our way of unmerging or unidentifying with a historical conditioned pattern.
Yeah. So let's say you are married. That is what most people would say, like that is a fact, like you are married. Is it beneficial to you to say to yourself, I am not a husband? To unmerge with the identification of that and therefore come back to your essential nature.
I think this goes into language. The first thing that comes up is, can I articulate a function that I operate in, so that I can maintain my understanding of my nature while I know that I'm playing a function or a role. So, so to me, that's the silver lining. I know that I play the role of, or the function of, what we conceptually label as a husband.
Are you not just like Are you not just like identifying with a functionality? A doing? You're identifying with the doing there.
I'm identifying with the doing there. Yes, and I would, well, I mean, it's like everything else. I would like to assume on one level that I'm doing so with being aware and making some kind of conscious choice that I'm engaging in an activity that I agree upon, but that I have some kind of an agreement that I want to do in co-participate with someone else in. I think we all could probably get ourselves into trouble when we adopt certain conditioning and get into obligation associated with what it means to be a husband, what it means to be a partner.
Of course.
For me, I think at the end of the day, I come back to the idea is, do I lose myself in that character, i.e. a husband, or am I knowing that I am aware, or I am, and I'm just putting on the suit or the function of a husband in a given situation?
Yeah, I'll speak to my own personal experience of noticing something that I feel is in some way relative to this. In a relationship where I've grown in experience of late, I've not had a label of any sort. I've not had an expectation, at least as reduced of expectations I've ever had. And in not saying I am this to this person, or I am doing this for this person because it's an expectation, I've noticed that the purity of that relationship, and I've shared this with you before, this is not new to you, it seems to have grown in a different way. And I guess what I'm inviting is in whatever kind of relationship, we just got into relationships here because I posed that as an example. Notice what you are identifying with and ask yourself, is your partner essential to your nature? Is you as a boyfriend essential to your nature? And so on, to come back to real life things in noticing that you are not that, and what are you really?
Mm-hmm.
Because in relationships, especially, as you know, maybe not through your own experience, maybe so, maybe through your clients, like people get very identified with being a husband or a father or whatever. I'm sure he talks about that in this book somewhere.
Yeah. And I always go back to, am I losing sight? Am I losing the forest from the trees in regards to what I am and forgetting? Is it a forgetful facilitation of forgetfulness, or am I engaging in that function, knowing what I am?
There was a line that I highlighted, if you don't mind, that I share at the bottom of 44. It's the formulation I am is a conceptualization of the experience I am, the awareness of being. It is like an image of the screen on the screen. As long as it is not qualified by experience, I am refers directly to intimate, impersonal, infinite, self-aware being. I highlighted this because it confuses me, but I know it confuses me because it's important. So maybe you can help clarify this for me a little bit.
Yeah. So
maybe you're confused too, and you want to be confused with me.
Well, what maybe might be your question, sir?
Well, so the formulation I am, meaning like the conjoining of those words, that statement, it's not for the words, but it's for a description, a labeling of experience, essential experience, which is the awareness of being. Am I understanding that right? Is there a question there?
I don't know. Restate it one more time.
Oh, I have no idea what I just said.
So I think what he's
That's
getting
it.
at, okay, so for me, what I interpreted was I am is a formulation, right? It's a formula. Even in and of itself is a concept. Just the mere fact of words coming out of our mouth are going to be some level of concepts. So for me, it is the I am is a conceptualization of the experience of I am, the awareness of being. So for me, we're using language to communicate with each other. And at the most root or elementary level of our innate nature, we've decided to use the word I am and not qualify anything. So to me, it's almost like the most cleanest concept that we can get at.
Yeah.
And then if we really want, and if we really go no conceptual level at all, and we're just either silent or energetically transmitting ourselves through whatever medium and way, that is the direct experience. So the direct experiencing is it. And we just so happen to use I am as a social construct, that we have a contractual agreement that we're going to use the I am based on this concept or this definition. That's how I was understanding what he's saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's kind of what he says at the very end of this page. To abide in the I am is the highest form of prayer, which is the point of this whole chapter. It's the cleanest description of experiencing as completely a part of God, source, whatever. Yeah. Okay, cool. Thanks for tying that into a pretty bow for me.
Yeah.
If I'm confused, I'm sure somebody else would be. So I don't mind being confused for all you people out there watching this, all 3 of you. Just kidding.
I appreciate that martyrdom that you just took on yourself.
Fuck off. Okay, so we're moving on to the next section, and anything coming up for you in the nearby pages?
I have a couple of things underlined, but I didn't write anything in my notes. Let's see. No, I don't have, on the next page, I have a bunch of notes that I can refer to. I don't have anything on 46 or 47, do you?
Nope.
Just to throw this fun point on 47, right after the question that is asked, Rupert says, quote, "When you say, how can I stay in awareness? You are taking yourself to be something other than awareness, such as a body or a mind." It again always reflects to me the questions that we ask are a good indicator of whether we're perceiving ourselves as a separate self.
Yeah.
And it always reminds me of like, well, how do I improve my nature? How do I stay in my nature? Would be like saying, how do I improve the fact that I'm a man? And how do I stay a man? I know that's a hot topic today, but how do I stay a man? I mean, there's nothing I can really do. The mere fact is I will fundamentally, at a energetic and a cellular level, always be a man. I can try to do all I can try to do all the surgeries, and I can try to do all of the transitions.
You're really going down that path. We're supposed to be on a pathless path, man.
I gotcha. I'm just gonna say it.
No, it was good.
And maybe I'm totally I could be quite ignorant out of this whole thing. At the end of the day, that to me speaks volumes. You know, it's like when we're coaching a client and they're asking themselves questions, or they make statements about themselves or their partner. You know, it just sticks out like a sore thumb. Where it's like, okay, what is the nature of that share, on whose behalf, so to speak?
I was literally, that was what I was going to say. Excuse me. I feel like you've asked me this, and it doesn't always work for the what Rupert describes as like the active minds. Like, you can't just be like, who's doing the asking?
Right.
Who needs to know, kind of thing, because that just, but that is a quick slice to the core of, let's look inward here and see who needs to know that, who needs to see that.
Right.
To me.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Anything else you got going on the next pages?
I wrote a bunch of shit down. Well, I mean, this just piggybacks off of what I just read, but basically the participant in the audience said, so is there nothing I can do in the sense relative to improving themselves and all that shit? And he says, there is nothing that you as awareness need to do to be yourself. You are already always only yourself. However, if we believe and feel ourselves to be a separate self, a personality, a soul, a separate soul, whatever you want, whatever language works, then we are already doing something. What are we doing? Seeking peace and happiness in objective experience.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it basically boils down to two options. If I were to really try to simplify this even for myself as I hear this, is either you see yourself as thatness and you go through experiences and knowing that life will come at you with pleasure and lack of pleasure, so to speak, in experiencing life. But as long as you don't identify yourself with it, you go through it. The other path is when I think of myself as a separate self and I don't have, and I'm not the screen, therefore I lack completeness, I lack peace and harmony, equanimity. I then go into the world as a quote separate self, and I try to acquire codependent relationships, a job, all these different things in such a way that is a compensation for getting those same needs met. So to me, that's what he's really getting at, is that if you see yourself as a separate self, you're going to seek peace and happiness in objective experience.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And what I feel like, through this section of where he's speaking with the audience here, I didn't make any notes at all because I feel like it gets, at least for me, it got simple. Like he did such a good job explaining for me in the chapter before this that he keeps asking the same question, like, who has to be less identified? Like keep asking yourself, like, and coming back to, again, I am that ultimate prayer. It's simple but difficult. Like it's
So I'm kind of curious.
Like all of a sudden.
So I'm kind of curious for you, Tyler. You brought up in the past, I threw out that question to you about who is the one who's asking that. Who's the one who's on whose behalf does that thought arise, which is a typical phrase that he'll use. So how did you experience that the first time, and how are you experiencing it this time in this phase of your life?
That's interesting. I feel like I'm relaxing into it in some way, which is like, I'm happy I haven't used that language, because it is not a doing of finding that, it is like a sinking into it. What did it feel like the first time? I feel like this was just within the last 8 months or so that you started to post this to me. It is it's a letting go process for sure. Like I've just noticed that, like, when that question comes up for me, am I willing to let go of whatever story or whatever experience this is, all of these things? Every fucking thing that we talk about is about the content of my experience. Like that's what we all talk about all the time, and in therapy or coaching or whatever, that is that. And just understanding now, coming into anything I'm experiencing, anything I'm sharing, anything I feel like I'm living, knowing now that none of this is what I am, allows just an ease of life, an ease of sinking into and feeling more at peace with everything for me. Now, again, as you've seen personally for me, it's not like overall there's not really highs and lows, but I'd say the baseline level of my experience is at a generally more peaceful and quicker to find equanimity kind of state overall.
Yeah, cool. I remember the first time I started dabbling with that question, it was first intellectually, I was confused, to say the least. How does a simple question be so confusing, which is a nice little paradox.
Totally. Oh yeah. Those are the best ones.
Yeah. And I realized I experienced myself being so conditioned to identify with my personality, my mind, my body, that it was almost, as you said, it was like a shedding, like a snake shedding its skin and looking at things with a different lens of perspective, that allowed me to actually feel, wow, that resonates. For me, it was like, you know, in Journeys, we would talk about your experience of me as a reflection of you, or, you know, into me, I see with intimacy, right? You know, and that I don't love you, but I love my experiences of you. Like, to me, almost like the wheels were greased a little bit. And yet, to me, this took it to the next level for me in regards to the piercing of even that language. Because sometimes I know in the past when I would say, I love my experiences of you, I can still remain as a separate self. I see myself as separate from you. I'm just having my own internal, I'm separate from you, and etc. Where for me, these questions really facilitate intimately to come back to your actual nature, and then to know that that's the nature of everything around me in a type of unicity type perspective. That to me was the game changer. It made it viscerally clear for me of how to marriage those two models, so to speak.
Yeah, I love that. And also, is your awareness of being the same thing as my awareness of being? And I feel like that's not something that we've gotten into. You kind of, I feel like I heard you just say something about that. I wonder if he gets into that in some of his work, but probably save that for a little bit later.
Whatever works. Sure.
Cool. Oh, what I was going to say was, and this is relative to the very last statement in this chapter, when you are a seeker, especially, you know, we think we have more awareness, right? We think our consciousness is higher. It's super easy to even attach and identify with that, maybe even more, because there's effort involved now. Like, you are putting energy and effort into growing, and when you grow or suffer in your growing, put work and grit into the growing part, you're attaching to that very strongly. So even with that as a seeker, and putting all this energy into that, and then realizing that even that doesn't need to be done, it can be very difficult. We both are still in that a little bit. I'll speak for myself. I'll speak for you too. I think you do it still. I definitely do it still, you know, and that's okay. It's part of the unraveling. And that's where, you know, in the last part of the chapter, the statement says, I'm wondering about the balance between doing and non-doing, because I feel I need to make an effort, yet at the same time, I feel that non-doing is actually allowing me to step back more into who I truly am. So, can you be a hermit? No, you cannot be a hermit, because we're living in this real life word. You can't just do that. But maybe there's a opportunity for meditation, like what we typically describe as meditation, where you're seated or not, finding who you truly are, or relaxing into the amness of your not doing. And if you could just tell your lady to not fucking interrupt our conversation, oh my God, everybody comment below, shame Jason.
I just got the devil eyes as I am, as which is my interpretation. I got the she gave me the eyes, and then she's going upstairs. Now she's yelling at me from the stairs that I have some weird experiences. Oh God.
Oh wow. That's awesome. That's awesome for the world to see. I'm not editing any of this.
Sounds beautiful. Oh God.
So let's move on to chapter 7, because we're never.
I just want to throw a couple of bombs out there real quick. Top of page 49. I think this is really important for people to consider, at least. He says, mind is always in movement. No movement, no mind. But what about awareness? Awareness is always just awareness, coloring itself in the form of the mind, or remaining in its uncolored condition. I made a note that the mind is the activity of awareness, a verb versus a noun, something that you, person, place, thing, you do, you are, right? So for me, if we stop using language that suggests that the mind is a noun, but use the mind as a verb, I think that was really important.
That's great. That's really great. I love that. Mind is a verb. Cool. Yeah. It's like you're smart or something.
I don't know. And then the top of page 59, I love the fact that the person in the audience asks a question. So at the end of the day, it's just a recognition of that, meaning of awareness. And he says, yes, there is just a recognition of that. And who is it that would recognize awareness? Only awareness is aware, and therefore only awareness is aware of itself, or indeed aware of any other apparent thing. I mean, simply saying is, rather than grinding out, seeking efforts, which you were just alluding to arrive at peace and happiness and equanimity and blah, blah, blah. If we drop the effort to do that, it's just a recognition that we are that. And that's why there's no effort involved. Yep. So I just thought.
Yeah, I would say a simple provoking question for people to consider right now is, what do you feel like you need to do? And ask yourself, is that doing essential to who you are?
Yes.
Bada bing, bada boom.
I just, one more thing. It says on the bottom of 50, it says, in time, it will be clear that you cannot make an effort to be what you always and already are. Indeed, it would only be necessary to make an effort to be something you are not, such as a separate self. That is why it is so exhausting to be a separate self. I mean, that just is the icing on the cake. So going back to our earlier comment, for me, it is when you asked me about the role of a husband or a marriage, right? To me, it is, if I engage in activities of improvement, I want to improve my body. That's what I'm currently working on, right? If I am doing it without knowing I am, then I'm going to be doing those activities as a means of a separate self, which is rooted in the idea that I'm seeking happiness and pain. So if I get my body to look like X, then I'll finally feel good about myself, and I will come out of my misery about what my body represents to me. Whereas if I know that I am and I'm anchored in that, and I'm doing these activities, not to get happiness, but in order to have a quality of life, or that I actually feel my body is thriving in that environment, but my happiness is not dependent upon that. That to me is the differentiator of how I've been processing that for me lately.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. Yeah. It's kind of like the conscious coloring of awareness, if awareness was piece of paper being colored on, whatever, canvas.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like you're aware of it and you're still doing it. It's just like it's art. It's not. I don't know if I've explained this well. My metaphor is not coming through. Let's just stop there.
Well,
So,
yes, I think to piggyback on that, if your body is a work of art and you're drawing or you're creating out of a love for it, not to arrive at getting love because of doing it, then to me, that's how I interpret what you're getting.
Yeah, thanks for wrapping that up for me. Thanks, appreciate that. So chapter 7 is called The Silent Presence of Awareness. I'll say the first paragraph. The first paragraph says, the understanding that we are the awareness that witnesses, knows, or is aware of experience is the first great recognition, is the first step on the path to rediscovering our innate happiness. And, this is kind of repetitive in a way, but it's just a good reminder, which is why I thought I would share it. If you can come back to I don't even know if I don't even know if I should use the word identification. Can you identify as I am? Can you identify as your essential nature? Or is that even an attachment?
I would say that would probably be language, in my opinion, to reflect a separate.
There's no need for identification. It's just you are amness.
One of the things, Tyler, for me that's always helped me is good, bad, or going back to this gender topic, is at the end of the day, do I need to be do I have to convince myself, at least for 99.9% of the people out there, I'll just say, do we have to convince ourselves of what our gender is? It's just a working, embedded, foregone conclusion. It's not like that. To me is and at least it's been helpful for me.
Well, you definitely need to prove to me what your gender is.
Right on.
Okay. Anything on this first page for you?
Nope.
I thought the magical television screen thing was interesting. Imagine a magical television screen that is not watched by someone sitting on a sofa, but has the capacity to watch the movie that is playing on itself. It is an aware screen. We awareness are like that. We are utterly, intimately one with any experience, and at the same time, free from and independent of it. Awareness is both immanent and transcendent. So what he's saying is like even awareness is a part of the content of experience, is what I believe I'm hearing there. It's not like we're separate from the content of experience. Even awareness encapsulates that. The screen is watching the screen itself, but it's the coloring of the screen, the movie that is within the screen, that is the content of experience that the screen is enlightening, seeing, witnessing.
Yeah, I like the word he uses is is a modulation. So the movie is a modulation of the screen, but never is independent of the screen. It is the screen.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Moving along. So, why is awareness?
What page are you on now?
54.
Okay.
Anything for you here?
Well, since you referred to on the previous page, the first great recognition, I like the fact that just to tie in the second step, which is having extricated ourselves from the content of experience and recognize ourselves as the presence of awareness, which is step one. Next step is to explore the nature of awareness that we essentially are.
Yeah. I underlined that part too, actually.
Yeah. So I think what
is the nature of the awareness that we essentially are then?
Yeah, so good question. So I made some notes on this. So for me, it is wholeness, unicity. Um,
Can you
and
explain unicity just really briefly for people that
yeah,
might not know?
yeah, unicity is just the knowing that everything is oneness. I'll say it that way. There's we're
Once,
nothing
yeah.
but interdependent. The whole universe is interdependent, like a cobweb. You know, you pull one part of it. It's like the body is a system of systems. So that idea. So therefore, not Tyler, but your essence is my essence, is the dog's essence, is the person walking down the street. Their fundamental nature is everyone's fundamental nature. And then the other thing to me would be is equanimity. So those are the things that I would throw out there as a proposal of the nature of awareness, so to speak. And I arrive at that from when I've sat in the when I, undo, if you will, my attachments to content, and I just sit as, I guess, the question of being aware of being aware. So non-objective experience when I sit in that place, when I'm meditating or whatever. I guess those are the adjectives or the descriptor terms that come up for me. I've yet to be in that space and experience separation, experience a sense of lacking of anything, or an agitation. So that would be my antidote.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I mean, I feel like he's kind of in some way inviting us to notice what is essential to awareness outside of ourselves as well. Like the cloud is not essential to the sky. I mean, it's just a simple analogy there. I don't think I have anything else to add to that.
Well, I think, Tyler, on page 55, on the top part there, just for another metaphor to belabor this point one more time before we move off of it, maybe, it says a typical movie comprises of approximately 150,000 frames. But when we are watching it, we don't think we are experiencing numerous images. We feel that we are watching one movie. The movie derives its unity from the singularity of the screen. I really like that. And I really like an example, old school Mickey Mouse. They used to draw, one frame at a time, and then they stack them, and then when you peel it, like you do your page, you do this.
Yeah.
It looks like it's moving, it's animated, right? But at the end of the day, it's not. So for whatever reason, that analogy pops up in my head too.
Yeah, and in the top of the next paragraph, I actually underlined with that, it means that we are only having one experience. So, even when we're sleeping and going into the next day, it's not like there's a new chapter. It's not like it's the next page, because sleep and dream is also a part of that experience. And to me, like when you start to play with the one experience and like how all of this is just an experiencing through awareness and letting go in some way of time with that. And I think he gets into time here somewhere, but it allows, for at least for me in my experience, it allows myself to not need to like describe or label the seemingly progression of this experience, right? Like time is not the progression of my experience. I am just having experience regardless of time or chapter or progression.
Yeah, appreciate that. Here, I mean, this is, I don't know, I'm just going to read it. I just think it's so cool. Just as a person in a cinema watches a movie, enjoying the good and the bad characters alike, so we awareness, witness, or are aware of the entire spectrum of experience, irrespective of its content. And just as nothing that takes place in a movie changes the basic nature of the screen, so nothing takes place in experience changes our essential nature of pure awareness. The screen upon which a horror scene appears is the same screen upon which a romantic unfolds. The awareness that witnesses our most ecstatic moments is the same awareness that witnesses our deepest sorrow. And for me, the nugget here is that when there is aware of being aware, i.e. the screen, that no matter what comes up, because life does kick us metaphorically in the rear, in the ass, and we're going to have deep sorrow and deep pleasure. And I think what we're invited to do is to always ensure that we are aware of being aware in having an experience of those things, but we aren't those things from our essential nature perspective. And for me, at least as of today, that helps myself facilitate in a way that says I can deal with what is, because it's temporal and finite. It's a fundamental experiencing of life. It's not what I am or who I am, right? So it's not to say that just because you feel like, for me, it's not like if I identify with the screen, I'm going to be enlightened and I'm going to have nothing but bliss. It is to say that you'll have uncomfortable sensations, but how you experience them, for me, I've experienced at least a little bit of enough of it to say that when I feel I am the screen and I have those experiences, my ability to I'll say it, my bandwidth to handle and experience them with grace and peace about it makes a big difference.
Yeah, a question that popped up for me in regards to noticing how awareness is witnessing both the highs and lows is to ask oneself, in both the high and low, is awareness still here? Especially in the lows, because it's really hard to wake oneself up out of those places. So, what is that thing that's going to be like, and I thought that question could be helpful for me down the road, maybe for you, maybe for others.
Yeah.
But
can you say the question one more time?
In deep sorrow, is awareness still here?
I'm going to write that one down.
Bang, bang.
I like that, Tyler. Thank you.
I do that sometimes. And kind of on that note, a little line that I underlined on 56 is, it's really simple. That is, nothing ever happens to our essential self. Deep sorrow, deep bliss. There is, what in the world? My cat is going crazy. There's no happening to what is. What is itself there without the happenings. That's it.
To me, that reminds me of what you asked, what we talked about last week on that quote, where something along the lines of the mind sinking into the heart. When you fall asleep, you fall into. Remember something like that you were asking about? So it reminds me, and you earlier said it, is like this concept of pure potential, right? The screen is pure potential. It could modulate any kind of movie, depending upon, is it a drama, an action, a horror flick, or a romantic comedy. Mm-hmm. So in a sense, for me, that idea is that it's fullness. It has everything and anything as pure potential. whatever.
Yeah. Hey, bring your screen down. We want to see your whole face here. Jesus Christ.
God, Jesus.
And that actually brings me into this next thing I actually wrote on my page. I wrote down age. So it makes sense, like with you, being old and not knowing what to do with the camera screen. So let's talk about age a little bit.
No problem.
I just really like this because with suffering, especially physical suffering, there's a strong identification with that content of experience, right? And I get it. I've been there. But the near like middle-ish of 56, it says, one might argue that every time we look in the mirror, we are confronted with evidence of aging. However, when we look in the mirror, we do not see an image of ourself. We see an image of our body. The awareness that perceives the image in the mirror is in exactly the same immaculate, untarnished, ageless condition as the awareness that saw the image of our face in a mirror as a 5-year-old child. And this, we do some inner child stuff. That right there, to me, is a really fun way to play with connecting to that inner child, or whatever age it is. And almost in some way kind of time travel and play with the essential nature of ourselves within our own experience from the past. Like, I look through these eyes and there was something essential within me back then, even though I might not have been as conscious about it, but it was there. And it was in a different body. And I looked at that body and I was fully identified with it. But now I'm here, not fully identified with it, maybe halfway. And the same awareness is here. And I just thought that was such a fun, playful kind of time traveling exercise for myself.
It's because
if you don't like it, fuck off.
Maybe because you're getting older now, Tyler, and you're so much of you're no longer that young whippersnapper, so you're trying to reconnect to those parts.
Man. Things start to happen in your 30s. Let's not talk about it.
Yeah, let's just avoid that altogether.
All right. Yeah. Do you know what time it is?
It is 10:23, so we have about 5 minutes left, and we've been at it at an hour. Just to let you know.
Okay. So we just kind of wrapped up at least my version of page 56. Anything moving along for you?
No, it's all good.
Okay.
On page 59. Well, here, there is a really good statement on 58. It says, awareness is self-aware by nature, and as such cannot be aware of itself. It is always aware of itself. It is aware of itself simply by being itself.
It's funny. One, you fucked that up, so I get it. But I also underlined and starred that little section too. And it's funny how I've noticed how in certain times we've done the same thing in certain sections. So that was fun.
Yeah.
What does it mean to
you? It's a subtle reminder to be careful of not making yourself into a separate self that is divine or.
Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Some of those statements for me, like I star them and I underline them, and it's like, one, we get the essential nature of this message, and sometimes just things like that don't really need to be talked about. Just the statement is like, it is that. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Now, when he talks about the characters and actors,
Mm.
like as a metaphor, did we come across that in a certain YouTube video, an actual talk that he did, or because I feel like I read that before or saw that in one of his videos?
It's the king. What homeboy here, Tyler, is talking about is a
Yeah.
metaphor on this John Smith who plays King Lear in the Shakespearean play. So basically, John Smith is equivalent to the screen, or John Smith is awareness. And King Lear is a role or a character which is played by John Smith. And so the metaphor goes, when John Smith forgets that he's John Smith and gets so immersed in the role of King Lear that when the play is over, he continues to play and dress and act and function and carry the sorrows of King Lear out in the streets, 24/7. And yet at the same token, when we recall our nature, then we recall that we're John Smith and that we were never not John Smith. We just forgot that we were. So it's that recognition again.
I'm going to call this one the Heath Ledger effect.
Yeah, or the other one that I really like a lot too, I think I appreciate that one too, is Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah.
When he plays in I remember when he played that character, that role with the glasses and the beard, and he went on like Letterman's show, and he went on like he was the character, and he wasn't functioning like his normal self, and people thought, "Are you deranged? Like, is there something wrong with you?" Because he didn't go out of character to prepare for the movie. It's that kind of stuff.
I actually didn't see that. You'll have to send that my way.
Okay,
but yeah, same idea.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, we should. I don't know. Maybe we should play with that a little bit.
Yeah.
Take an acting class or something. See how, like, though I am this awareness, even when I'm pretending to not be something else. Just anyways.
Well, I mean, listen, to make it even, at least for me, to make it even more practical, is I am that. There's the I am playing the role of Jason with the Enneagram type 1 personality type, right? I mean, all of those are my characters, or my character with all of the different unique features of my role, etc. So when we identify with the mind and the body as a character and lose sight that we are I am, to me, it's a real practical metaphor then. But yes, I'm willing to go to fucking acting school, Tyler, just to highlight and learn about what this statement means.
Another playful way of realizing what we are not.
Yes.
Let's spend some more money on what we're not.
Yeah.
Anything that you'd like to finish off with? Finishing up both the discussion and also the chapter.
For whatever it's worth, the bottom of 60 and all of 61, I just wrote a shit ton of notes. This goes back to our earlier comment. So basically, our essential nature is devoid of the sense of lack, separation, and agitation.
Yeah.
Therefore, what our nature is wholeness or completeness. There's without limit. There's the unicity, one substance, if you will, and that there is undisturbed innate peace. So we're undisturbed by experience. So those were how I wrote down the 3 antidotes to what we typically feel when we're a separate self, which is lack, separation, and agitation. So I've been sitting with that to say, anytime I'm feeling a sense of lack, a sense of separation, or a sense of agitation, I've been using that as a triggering for me to say, maybe I am stuck in my character, stuck with my identification with my character versus my true essential nature. So I've been using
You
that
said
as a,
lack, agitation, and separation.
yeah.
Cool.
And then therefore the opposite is true then. Without limit, complete or wholeness, unicity or one substance, interconnection. And the last one is innate peace, undisturbed by experience.
Yeah.
I don't know, I can, so I'll just read this one because I made a note for myself. I said, I can read this 1,000 times. It never ever dulls. It says, there's a long silence. It says, well, let me say it this way. What is the nature of the you, the one you call I, and shines brightly in your experience? That's what Rupert asked, an audience member. And then there was just this long silence. And he said, perfect. Stay in the silence, and the memory of your eternity will emerge. You yourself will remember itself, not the memory of an experience in the past, but the memory of something that is present in you now, but which seems to have been obscured by the clamor of experience. Yourself will wake up from the amnesia of experience and recognize or remember that self, the self that it is and always has been.
All right.
I just thought that was booming.
So we'll leave the audience with this, and maybe ourselves as well. When this place of amness, are we completely in silence? And does anything outside of silence distract us from that amness?
Cool.
No need for an answer.
Yeah, sounds beautiful.
Cool, man. All right. So everybody, thanks for joining us today for Two Dudes with No Path on what we're calling a non-practice practice. Thanks for showing up vulnerably and old today, Jason.
That's all I got.
Vulnerability and oldness. Well, I got youngness and stupidity, just figuring out the non-figuring process. Hugs and kisses to everybody. See you next week.
Peace, good people.
Peace out.